The LA Clippers went into Denver hoping to break what's been somewhat of a psychological edge for them the last couple of years against this team, and it was their best performance against the Nuggets yet. But what late game decision had Clipper fans absolutely losing their minds on Sunday night? That and more on today's Locked On Clippers. Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for more LA sports and LA Clipper content. Of course, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, but if you want to see the visual version, go to YouTube and subscribe and let me know who would you have rather had close the game instead of the decision that had everybody going crazy on Sunday night with Marcus Morris Sr. closing the game again. We're going to be talking about it coming up. Also, Russell Westbrook's second game as a Clipper. And then the reason why I think the Clippers actually have a chance against the Nuggets after seeing that game made me actually more optimistic than anything that we actually have a shot against them. But today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is where you make daily fantasy entries. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. The promo code Locked On. That's the promo code Locked On for an instant deposit match up to $100. But let's get right into it. So Clippers going into Denver, and it was another extremely slow start. I was really afraid that the Clippers are going to fall into the exact same trap they did in the game against the Nuggets where they got embarrassed last month. And it just started out with the Clippers missing shots and the Nuggets making shots. Kawhi Leonard started out 0 for 4. Russell Westbrook had 2 turnovers in the first 5 minutes of the game, and that made me really nervous. And then Paul George was bricking as well. But then they actually calmed down, and you have to give the Clippers a lot of credit. They showed a lot more resilience, they showed a lot more calm, and they stayed with it, and eventually shots started to fall. And I really think the bench. I think the bench and Kawhi Leonard got the Clippers back in the game towards the end of that first quarter. Kawhi started out 0 for 4, but he ended up having 7 points to end the quarter and started getting going. And the funny part is he may have started 0 for 4, but he ended the game 12 for 15 the rest of the way. So Kawhi just kind of transformed back into that Kawhi we saw on Friday night where everything just went in. And slowly but surely, they started chipping away at it. You got to give a lot of credit to guys like Bones Highland, Nico Batum, obviously Terrence Mann, as usual, doing his thing. Norman Powell coming off the bench. You know, the Clippers actually went with a 10-man rotation. Notice, if you didn't watch the game, I said Bones Highland. He actually played, made his return to Denver, and was booed on every single touch. And Reggie Jackson playing against the Clippers for the first time. It was definitely something to see Reggie in another jersey. It clearly meant a lot to him that game. He wanted to win really badly. And it was, I don't know. Let me just say, I don't think Reggie Jackson looks as good in a Nuggets jersey as he does in a Clipper jersey. But what can you do? He's a Nugget now. And yeah. But let's get into it even more. So the Clippers cut what was an 18-point lead early down to 8 at halftime. And Russell Westbrook and Paul George started playing a little bit better in that second stint when they were back in the game in the second quarter. But the second half, we chipped away at it. And I'm really proud of the way the Clippers fought. You know, the offense was good. We were getting tons of good looks. And defensively, it was a very interesting strategy that the Clippers went to. They went with Nico Batum guarding Nikola Jokic, and at the end of the second quarter, you start to see it worked a little bit because it was allowing guys like Russell Westbrook to be roamers on defense, and they were actually getting in the way of Jokic in terms of things like this. When the Clippers tend to go small against bigs, you'll usually see guys like Nico Batum or Terrence Mann front the post. And when they do that, you need a lob pass over the top. And what Russ was doing really well was sagging off guys like Aaron Gordon or Bruce Brown or whatever, and coming from behind and getting his hand on balls. And he got 5 steals in the game. Russell Westbrook had 5 steals in the game. I thought he was really active on defense, and I thought Nico Batum, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, these guys did a good job trying their best on Jokic and holding their own until a secondary defender could come help them. But what was very interesting was that Ty Lue started the third quarter with Nico Batum and not Mason Plumlee. And then he put Mason Plumlee in when Jokic came out. And the reason he does that is because he doesn't want to play the Jokic-Murray pick and roll straight up. When you have Mason out there, you don't want to switch Plumlee onto Jamal Murray and a guard onto Jokic. But when you have a slightly bigger lineup out there, he was more comfortable switching guys onto Jokic and then doubling off of who he wanted to leave open, like Aaron Gordon or Bruce Brown or Vlatko Cancar, someone like that. So I thought it was a very interesting strategy, and despite the fact that it does come with its flaws, mainly on the offensive glass and not having any rim protection, it was working. And Mason Plumlee was unbelievable against Thomas Bryant in that second stint. Like, he absolutely dominated him. And even though the Clippers trailed by 14 in the third after they had cut it back down to 4, they still responded. And Kawhi Leonard, I mean, the guy was, again, just unbelievable in the mid-range area. His pull-ups, his 1-2 dribble, pull-up going either direction, sometimes no dribbles, just rising up over the top. He had 33 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, only 2 turnovers on 12 for 19 shooting and 3 for 4 from deep. The only thing I didn't like about Kawhi was 6 for 8 from the foul line. He needs to give the Clippers one more of those, because that could have been the difference right there. But Kawhi Leonard, that's the second game this season after the Sacramento game. The last 2 games have been the only games where he has scored over 30 points, and the Clippers have still lost. But coming down to the wire, Paul George gives the Clippers the lead, 108 to 107 on an and one. And then towards the end of the game, Marcus Morris checks back in. While Nico Batum has had an amazing game, Terrence Mann has been fantastic. I mean, Terrence Mann hit a shot in the first half where he was on the baseline going to his right, pulled it back out, and on the right wing turned and just threw it up there over his right shoulder at the shot clock buzzer, and it went in. I couldn't believe my eyes. Just not shots you see Terrence Mann making typically. And he had 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. In 25 minutes, he was +5, yet Marcus Morris checked back into the game. And at the time, I'm pretty sure Marcus Morris had only hit 2 shots. 2. One was a cutting dunk, and another was a mid-range. He had not hit a 3 yet. So there's no reason, in my opinion, no basketball reason to defend Marcus Morris being in that game over Terrence or Nico Batum. It's just absolutely mind-boggling at this point. Ty Lue has picked favorites this season, and it's been very detrimental to the team. The data doesn't back it up. The eye test doesn't back it up. The only argument to make is that Mook spaces the floor, but Nico Batum and Terrence Mann also space the floor. And they play better defense, and they do more on the other end in terms of rebounding. Marcus Morris had 3 rebounds in this game. Nico Batum had 2. Terrence Mann had 3. And Terrence Mann played 8 less minutes. Nico Batum played 12 less minutes. And Marcus Morris was a -17, while Terrence Mann was a +5 and Nico Batum was a +10. As I said, the data doesn't back it up. Neither does the eye test. And Marcus Morris did hit 1 mid-range in regulation, but in overtime, and by the way, that Paul George shot at the end of regulation from 3/4 court, you saw the same thing on Saturday night with Joel Embiid doing it and it not counting. How amazing would that have been had Paul George won the game on that? But I also want to say there was a goaltend that was not called in the fourth quarter that ended up costing the Clippers in very many ways. Eric Gordon put the ball on the backboard first, and then it was hit. So that should have been 2 points. And it was very blatant, which made me really angry because I understand the 50-50 goaltends, but that was very blatant. Anyways, Clippers go to overtime, And Marcus Morris continues to stay out there, which I was just like, this is a disaster waiting to happen, and it was. And it couldn't have made Marcus Morris look worse. He could not have had a worse overtime. 111 to 110 is the score. Jamal Murray is coming up the court. Jamal Murray, who has given the Clippers fits over the years dating back to the bubble. And Marcus Morris is trying to figure out who he's picking up in transition. Kawhi Leonard is the last one back, but I think he's looking like he's going to pick up Jokic. There is no communication between Marcus Morris and Kawhi, but I put that on Marcus because everyone was getting to their man. He's trying to figure out who he's guarding. Who is stopping the ball? And Jamal Murray is walking into a three. He makes it. That puts the Nuggets up 4. Now the crowd's going berserk. And then Paul George has his signature bonehead turnover of the game where he's driving to the basket in a pick and roll, tries to throw a lob to Mason Plumlee. It was a terrible pass, goes off the glass, and in transition, Michael Porter Jr. hit a 3. That put the Nuggets up 7. And then Marcus Morris shot a shot off the top of the backboard. It was just, oh my God, I just knew he was going to get roasted for that. And then he turned the ball over in the backcourt, and it allowed Nikola Jokic to throw the ball to Bruce Brown for a lob, and that was that. I cannot fathom the decision. It almost felt like I was being punked, I said. I mean, there's no justification for it. 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists for Marcus Morris, 0 for 4 from deep in 33 minutes. For him to play over Nico and Terrence, I just don't know. And Ty Lue, he's cost the Clippers some games with these late rotations not being what the Clippers need. There's simply no justification for it. I really don't know what to say at this point. I know Ty Lue and Marcus Morris Sr. are close, but it fully cost the Clippers the game. Do I think that they automatically win if you put Nico Batum or Terrence Mann in for him? Not necessarily, but we need to prioritize defense at the end of games. All Ty Lue seems to think about is shooting, even though Terrence Mann and Nico Batum can still do that. It's mind-boggling to me, and it's one too many games that this has happened. But coming up, going to be talking about Russell Westbrook's second game as a Clipper. Should he have closed? Because he didn't play any of the fourth quarter. What did I like from Russ? Going to talk about that coming up. But before we do that, I got to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy entry app on the market right now. And how does it work? All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and predict if they will score more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry, and it's not competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on just about any sport that you watch. It could be baseball, even though it's not baseball season yet. It could be hockey. It's hockey season. And, of course, NBA. And entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. On Monday, I'm thinking of going with Bam Adebayo's over against the Philadelphia 76ers on the points. And then I'm taking Jimmy Butler also on the over on points, being it's against Philadelphia, and I think he's going to take that game pretty seriously. And then I am going to go with the over on James Harden's rebounds. I don't know why, I just have a good feeling about it. But you can do all that on Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit matchup to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for an instant deposit matchup to $100. All right. So just to finish off on the case for Nico and Terrence to play, Terrence Mann was 1 for 4 from deep, but I think the shot that he made that I described earlier on the right wing may have gone down as a 2, but it was basically a 3. And then he had a really nice cut in the second half where he just threw down a dunk. And of course, that's something I talk about, that even though Marcus Morris Sr. actually had one moment where he cut in this game and scored, that's exactly what Terrence Mann needs to play because he's the best cutter probably on the team. It's either him or Nico Batum, but I'd say based on Terrence Mann's ability to finish at the rim right now at his age and his athleticism, he's the best cutter on the team. So when he threw down that dunk, and I think it put the Clippers down 5, like 99-94 or something like that. I think it was 99-94. I was just laughing to myself like, we play so much better with this guy on the court. And there was even a moment where he was guarding Reggie Jackson in the corner, and he was locking him up, and I loved it. And it was cool to see Reggie. I don't think he looks nearly as good in a Nuggets jersey as he does with the Clippers, but he had his moments, you know. Made 2 threes, pretty timely threes. But overall, 2 for 6. There was one moment where Reggie Jackson was being guarded by Mason Plumlee, and he clearly got by him, and for no reason, he just pulled it back out for a contested three. And I was like, yep, that's Reggie for you. And it was cool going up against Reggie on defense, too, because Bones Highland took him to the rim a couple times. And I like to see that. Not because I have anything against Reggie, just because, we had to deal with his deficiencies. I want to see you deal with them. And I know Nuggets fans felt that way when Bones airballed that three at the end of the third quarter, and we're just giving him, giving it to him. But Nico Batum, who was the guy that was the starting center in the start of the third quarter, was just absolutely fantastic. And for him to play 12 less minutes than Marcus Morris when he's shooting 3 for 7 from deep, 4 for 8 from the field, and has 12 points in just 21 minutes to play, is just coaching malpractice. And again, I'm not a person that thinks I can coach the NBA level, but the decisions that Ty Lue has made have been so head-scratching. There's no justification for it. And every game Ty Lue after the game comes out with, like, I should have played this guy more and this and that. And it's like, we talk about how big of a playoffs these are for Russell Westbrook, for Paul George, for Kawhi Leonard to look like his old self again, which he is looking like right now. But this is a huge playoffs for Ty Lue because he's had a terrible season. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it anymore. He has had a terrible season relative to his first two. He's not maximized this roster, and he said having too many good players right now is a problem. What did I say when we got Westbrook? What was going to be the issue with that? We're just adding another good player to the mix, which brings me to Russ. He started out poorly, 0 for 2. You started to see his deficiencies. But one thing, let me just give a shout out to this guy. One play that I thought no one's going to talk about that changed the game. This man had already had 2 turnovers in the first couple of minutes. And I was so nervous about him getting a third in that moment. Because if he had gotten a third turnover and started out 0 for 2 and the Clippers were down by 20, social media and Twitter would have ripped him. I mean, right now, everyone's watching Russ with such a close eye, given the whole Lakers debacle. And the Laker fans are almost like, it's so toxic right now. They're ready to pounce on this guy. LeBron fans, too. They're ready to pounce on this guy at every mistake he makes. And there was a play, Kawhi Leonard was 0 for 4, where Russell Westbrook threw a bounce pass in traffic. I mean, there were 3 bodies in the paint. And Kawhi Leonard barely catches the ball because it was this very risky pass. Had he turned that ball over on that pass, that's 3 turnovers in the first quarter. You just turned the ball over 7 times last game. We're down by 15 points. Oh, man, it would have been so bad what he was going to hear after that, or what. I don't know if he would have heard it, but what would have been on Twitter after that. But the fact that he completed the pass, got Kawhi Leonard a layup, that layup got Kawhi Leonard going for the rest of the game. And you might be saying, that doesn't mean Russ got him going. Look, you need to get easy baskets sometimes and see the ball go in, and it gets the lid off the basket. I remember one time I was playing in a playoff game when I was a kid, and I was forcing it. Like, I was forcing it big time because my team didn't have enough shot creators besides me. And I just was like, this is my first time playing in a playoff game at this place, and I'm just going to go hard. And I was turning the ball over left and right. And in the second half, I remember my uncle telling me, just get to the line, just see the ball go in, just get something easy, and then you'll be fine. I got 1 free throw, and after that, I just got going. You just need to see the ball go in sometimes. And when Kawhi had that layup, it was done from that point forward. He had 7 points at the end of the first. He got going. His jumper was good. And as I said, for the rest of the game, 12 for 15. So shout out to Russ. And that's not even the tip of it. Or that's barely the tip of it, I should say. When Russ came back in for that second stint in the second quarter, I thought he was really solid. There was one play where he was in the pick and roll. He snaked it, got to his left, shot a little bank shot. It was really nice. And then I talked about the 5 steals. I thought his defensive intensity was so much better. Good contests. And the one thing that sticks out about Russ to me with his contests, he's got long arms, and he still has bounce, so he can get high on that shot contest. And one of my favorite things about Russ so far is his rebounding. It's such a breath of fresh air. I mean, you look at plays, even on the offensive glass, and Russ is like 3 feet, or that's such an exaggeration, but like a foot above everyone else as he goes up in the air to get the rebound. So I really love that about him. And in the third quarter, that was Russ's best quarter. He was getting downhill. He was getting good looks for the team, but he was finishing around the rim. And again, it was so refreshing to have a guy that can put downhill rim pressure and finish. And he also hit a mid-range, and the play that got me so excited, a three. And I thought it was actually a three that I'm comfortable with him taking. Nico Batum and him threw the ball back to each other back and forth, and it was just a rhythm shot. He didn't have time to think. It came off a ball movement, and he stuck it. The thing about Russ is he played really well. He made a case to have played in the fourth quarter, and there was a lot of talk about that. Should Russ have closed the game? And everybody has their doubts about Russ closing because of his questionable decision-making, his propensity to get turnovers, and mainly the ball-finding non-shooters at the end of games. They won't guard Russ. They'll want him to get the ball and bait him into shooting. But given that the Clippers' playmaking wasn't great necessarily towards the end, I don't even think it was the playmaking. I think the Clippers were fine in the fourth quarter late game. I think if there's any argument to be made for Russ, it's to play in overtime over Eric Gordon. I don't think Eric Gordon, I know what Ty Lue was thinking. He wanted to have spacing out there, but Eric Gordon was like 0 for 4. And I have to say, 2 really good games to start Eric Gordon's second tenure with the Clippers, but 2 pretty bad games after that. He was 0 for 4 in this game, 0 points. He had to travel in overtime. Didn't do much else. 1 steal and 1 block was good, but Russell Westbrook probably should have gotten off that bench in overtime because he had played really well. He's had 2 good games so far. I've loved Russ. But the thing is, one thing I'll say about Ty Lue is, if we had won the game in regulation, it would have been perfect because Russ wouldn't have gotten blamed for anything. He would have just been a net positive. And that's kind of what I say in the podcast. I said I don't feel comfortable with Russ closing in the playoffs all the time in most games. And that's kind of the formula, what we were attempting last night. It was the formula, but there's still an argument to be made for Russ to close that game because it still takes the ball out of Paul George's hands. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about why I feel better about the Nuggets going towards the playoffs and some things that I felt interesting towards the end of the game. Going to be talking about that coming up. But before we do that, got to talk to you about Built Bar, and I really miss Built Bar. I'm waiting for my next box. If you're looking for a delicious treat and you want your box, go get some Built Bar. Delicious treat, but not with all the fat and calories of normal chocolate bars or protein bars. And Built Bar is actually healthy and actually tasty. And that's because it's covered in 100% real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and churro. And I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar. They have a chewy interior that's almost 100 grand like. It almost feels like there's caramel on the inside, but it is good. Go try it. My favorite flavor is raspberry because it reminds me of those like Brookside pomegranate things. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they're really good. And the thing about Built Bars is they're healthy. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around and get a box. For years, we've been talking about going to Built.com to get them, but you can go to Walmart or your nearest Sam's Club and go pick up a box for yourself right now. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with the hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right, so back talking about this one. And the reason why I think that the Clippers honestly have a better chance against the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs than I thought before we played last night, a couple reasons. One, their defense, while it's not as bad as everyone wants to say, and it's gotten better, we still got a ton of good looks. So did they, because Jokic is amazing, and if he's one-on-one, you just have to double him. He's that good, and he's going to find open shooters all day. But we were also getting good looks. So that's one thing. And that was the first game where I saw Kawhi Leonard really give Aaron Gordon the business in a long time. Because when Kawhi Leonard is hitting his shots, you can't do anything about him except hard double team. Those soft double teams don't work on mid-range snipers. They try to do it with Kobe so much, but he's still got his buckets. And Kawhi Leonard is not much different, and is even more spacing for him in this era. So if you got Kawhi Leonard one-on-one, there are some times when he's hitting his shots, there's nothing you can do, including Aaron Gordon or whoever it may be. So seeing that was awesome. And then my second thing is the Clippers bench is so much better than Denver. I think Bruce Brown is an awesome bench player, but Reggie Jackson, Thomas Bryant, and Vlatko Chanchar, they don't move me. We have Norman Powell, who's sixth man of the year to be, hopefully. Bones Hallen probably won't play in the playoffs, but he's just another option. Robert Covington would be a bench player for Denver in an instant. In an instant. He's, again, not playing. And, again, I'm honestly not even going to talk about Robert Covington because that ship, I don't want to say it's sailed, but it's just a shame. That's all I have to say. It's just a shame. But that Marcus Morris continues to get more minutes than him, even though Rocco brings more on the defensive side. I don't get it. Because it's crazy because my first podcast of Locked On Clippers was me saying that I feel like Marcus Morris is the odd man out and his presence feels redundant. And for a second I said that aged poorly. It aged so well. I got to stop doubting myself. I got to stick to my convictions sometimes. But, oh Lord. The bench, though, was much better for the Clippers. Let's actually look at the bench points. Because, okay, Nicholas Batum at 12, Norman Powell at 9. And by the way, Norman Powell only played 17 minutes. And I get it because he got targeted in the Sacramento game. But for our sixth man of the year to only get 17 minutes, that's a little questionable too. I mean, 4 for 9 from the field for Norm, 9 points. But the point is, Nico 12, Norman 9, that's 21. Bones Hallen 10, that's 31. And then 7 from Terrence, that makes 38. For the Nuggets, they only had 30. So we outscored them by 8 with the bench. And I just feel really good about the Clippers bench. And then Mason Plumlee was absolutely unbelievable against Thomas Bryant in that second unit. So the reason why it's so frustrating that the Clippers lost is because Ty Lue maybe coached his best game up until leaving Marcus Morris Sr. out there like that. He coached such a good game. The fact that he went with Nico Batum unconventionally to guard Jokic to take away the Murray-Jokic high pick and roll so we can switch it and then double off who we wanted, that was a great strategy. And we saw that last season when we beat the Nuggets, when we didn't have Kawhi or Paul George. So if we do play the Nuggets in the playoffs, look for the Clippers to actually do the opposite of what you might expect and go small to try to spread the floor for Jokic, make Jokic guard in space on defense, and obviously help Russ out with the spacing. And of course, just be able to not have to play the Murray-Jokic pick and roll straight up, because when Mason Plumlee or Zubas is in drop coverage, Jokic on that pick and pop or that floater, you're giving up an open shot. Or if you want to take away Jokic's shot with a rotation, well, he's so good at just making that extra pass. So instead of giving up an open shot in the pick and roll, you're double teaming Jokic and giving up an open shot, but to who you want to give the shot to in the double team, because you can rotate and kind of, let it get to the person you want if you're just double teaming and then rotating. So that's the strategy, and I thought it worked really well. And then Mason Plumlee dominated Thomas Bryant, dominated him, and yet gave the Clippers so many second chances and was just really, really good. Mason Plumlee, 6 points, 7 points, 10 rebounds on 2 for 2 shooting. I don't think the guys missed a field goal with the Clippers. But yeah, that's the reason I feel better. I think if the Clippers had just played the right lineup to end the game, I think that they could have won. I think they absolutely could have won. And it's just really frustrating because they were right there, and it would have been the best win of the season. But Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., he had a huge 3 to put the Nuggets up 2 towards the end of regulation. Jamal Murray shot that half-court shot, and the only thing I'll say Mason Plumlee did wrong is that KCP outworked him for that rebound. KCP got an offensive rebound and resulted in an MPJ 3. That put the Nuggets up 120 to 118. I'm sorry, 110 to 108, I believe it was. And then Paul George got fouled and made the 2 free throws. But that was a killer for sure. If we had secured that rebound, could have a different game. And also if the refs had called the goaltend, it could have been a different game. But Nikola Jokic, I will have to say, at the end of the day, he was the best player on the court again. And if the Clippers want to win in a series against the Nuggets, Kawhi Leonard's going to have to outplay Nikola Jokic in some games, and Paul George is going to have to outplay Jamal Murray in some games. And one thing I found really weird is why did Kawhi Leonard only get 1 shot in overtime? Why, when he's unconscious like that, was Paul George taking the ball away from him? That's foolishness on Paul's part. He had 3 turnovers, and the Clippers only turned the ball over 12 times, so that's a lot better than 25 that you did against Sacramento. But Paul George had 25% of the turnovers. And Russ, he didn't turn the ball over at all after the first quarter. He only had 2 turnovers the whole game. Russ, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 steals on 6 for 10 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3. I'm pleased with only 2 3-point attempts. I'm fine with that completely. Hit 1, and he made all 4 of his free throws, so that was awesome. Only 25 minutes played for Russ. Probably want to see him play a little more when he's playing like that. 17, 5, 4, and 5. I mean, that's really solid. And then I already talked about Kawhi, 33 points, 6 rebounds. Paul George, 23 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, 6 for 13 from the field, 0 for 4 from deep, so it sucked that he just couldn't hit the 3 ball. But 6 for 13 is efficient. And my favorite part about Paul George in this game, 11 free throw attempts, and he made all of them. So we always want to see Paul George getting double-digit free throw attempts, but it's still his decision-making, very questionable at the end. You got to get the ball to Kawhi. If he's hot, you don't go away from the hot hand. Foolish mistake. And the Clippers need to learn from that. And when Kawhi's got it going, you got to keep feeding him the ball. Paul George, he's an amazing player, and he still has the capability to make shots, big shots late in games. I mean, we've seen it throughout his Clipper tenure, but Kawhi's got to be option number 1. And when he's going, you got to be a sidekick. You got to, and that's something to look at going forward, I should say. But the Clippers lose it 134 to 124. And by the way, actually, never mind. I was right. It was 124 to 120 when Jamal Murray made the 3. I got my scores mixed up. It was 124 to 120 when Jamal made the 3. And it was 120 to 118 when Michael Porter made that 3 at the end of regulation, not 110 to 108. So apologies for that. But that's it for me. The Clippers lose it by 10. Moral of the story, I don't know when Ty Lue's going to pull Marcus Morris out at the end of games. He should have taken him out of the starting lineup already. But we'll see how it goes in terms of the end of games. And Terrence Mann, Nico Batum, they really need to be playing at the end of these. It's just very frustrating. And Russell Westbrook, great start to his Clipper career. But we'll see how he's utilized going forward in terms of closing games. It's a dilemma. Paul George needs to really step it up in terms of taking care of the ball late and just being a smarter player late. But that's it for me. Overall, Clippers, they have a chance against this Nuggets team. And mind you, there's one thing I didn't even mention. Didn't have Zoo. Didn't have Ivica Zubats. That's huge against Denver. Absolutely huge. To give us a different look with not just one big. And Zoo's better on the interior and I think better at defending Jokic one-on-one, even though he can't either. And Jokic, his stat line in this game is just absolutely off the charts. 40 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals on 14 for 21 shooting. 8 offensive rebounds is big. And the Nuggets out-rebounded the Clippers 50 to 38. And that's a big result of the Clippers going small. No team shot that well from 3, 32% for the Clips, 33% for Denver. They shot 51% from the field. We shot 49%. It is what it is. Clippers with a tough loss to Denver. And they'll be back on Tuesday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have not been playing great. I watched their game against the Warriors. No Rudy Gobert, no Karl Anthony Towns. Clippers need a win. Got to get Russell Westbrook his first win as a Clipper. And then hopefully they'll build a little streak. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for more Clipper, LA sports content, and basketball content. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers. 33-30 now on the season. And it's just, the time is running out. Time is running out on that 3 seed. And if we don't get that 3 seed, you already know how I feel. Comment in the comments below. What should the closing lineup have been? Who should have been in instead of Senior, in your opinion? Peace.